Okay, finally ready for these two panels, the hood and the sunroof. Just gonna do a quick tack and I'll get ready for sealer after that. Be back for base coat in about 20 minutes. I'm just going to get one more coat. I'll be back in just a little bit with the clear. All right, it's done. After a cut and buff, this thing will be fine. I don't see any fish eyes in this. Got the typical dust, but I'm gonna buff it out anyway. Now the other piece, the sunroof, has got more dust in it just because of all the overspray collecting in the air and falling on it. There's not much I can do about that. It's gonna get buffed out anyway, so it's not a problem. But if I find any fish eyes, I have to go back and dab a little paint in them to fill them in and come back and plane it down with my little block sander. You can see the specks in this. But all that'll come out. I'm just checking for fish eyes. I save a little clear when I get done in a little cup so that I can come back and dab a little paint in if I find any, but I don't see any in this, so we're good to go. I'll get this buffed out because I don't want to put the seal around it before I buff it and put it in the car. So I'm going to go ahead and buff it, then put the seal around it and put it in the car. That way when it's in the car, I don't get any compound trapped in the seal. Next thing is going to be most likely getting all the trim prepped, probably besides the bumpers. I'll get the trim prepped up and get it primed so it can be curing while I'm working on getting the doors painted back on the car. See you then. All right, hood's on. Got everything lined up. Now the gaps aren't perfect. It's slightly tighter on this side because when the hood opens up, or actually when it goes in, it's super tight here. I don't want it to hit the fender on the way in into the bracket with the little roller there. But I do have the front corner out nearly flush here, and I've got it level going across like the other side. So it's where it's going to stay now. I'm going to work on doing the seam sealer in that corner over there that I need to do, and then as soon as that's dry, probably tomorrow, I'm going to cavity wax this entire cowl. So that'll be done. But while I'm seam sealing, I've got to do the area back in here where you can see through the floor pan and the quarter. And I think I need some in the wheel well there where I welded the quarter to the wheelhouse. Charging the battery right now. I'm going to put a maintainer on it after this, and hopefully it'll crank the next time I get in. Working on the trunk lid right now. This latch is new. We replaced it, but I had to actually file these out a little bit and move it over to the driver's side because this latch right here is out of place and you can't adjust this. I think the tail panel is just slightly too far over to the driver's side, so I had to move this over. And I've temporarily got a smaller bolt, or a different bolt with a smaller washer, because that bolt, the original bolt with this large washer on it, won't fit up against this step in the striker. So I'm gonna have to file the side of the washer down so the original one will go in there so it'll match. But I've got it to fit like it is now. It was coming down flush or slightly to the right and pulling it over too far until I got that new striker filed out. But there's not enough adjustment in it for how the back end of the car has been repaired, as this panel's been replaced and the quarter. So I think the tail panel or something is just too far over this way. But I've got everything lined up. Gap looks good. Nice and flush. Looks good here. You can see the peak line all the way down beside it. This one right here, see that? It's not quite as flush on this side, but that's the best I can get it. Now this was sitting up a little bit, so I've got it shimmed on the back side of the hinge and this bolt back here, so it'll rock around this bolt and bring this down. So this is flush now. And it's nice and tight. I can look underneath with a light. It looks like it's sealing, so I'm going to leave this alone for now and move on to working on the doors. But I'm waiting on the piece of trim that goes across the top here. Since these little stops here will bottom out on this trim, I need to double check with that piece of trim in there that everything's still okay before I try to paint anything. But what I'll do is I'll take this off. I'll probably scribe some lines in here that won't be visible. Once this goes back on, that way I can take the tape off and paint it, and it'll go back where it's supposed to be now, in the same place. Same thing over there. But it closes, seals, and it looks good. So just gonna leave that for now. Move on to the the passenger side door. And this has some holes that were drilled for repair in here, so I've got to strip this door, redo any body work on it. There's a slight dent here, decent dent right there, and just get the outside body worked and primed, and then I'll flip it over and take care of this part in here where the door frame's damaged from the accident that was repaired on the outside. Now, not all this I can straighten out because it would have to have a door, but I can clean this up and straighten up what I can, and then I'll re-seam seal all this. Looks like they tried to weld it right there and it didn't hold. But I'll grind all this out and clean it up, straighten it, and I'll re-seam seal all this and paint the jamb first, and then I'll paint the outside of the door with the other one. That's where we are right now. Okay, I've moved on to this door. I just put the paint stripper off probably the first, maybe third to almost half of it. Let it sit here for about 20 minutes. It's actually starting to go down to the body filler that's right in here. See the body filler coming off. So whatever's left after this, scrape all this stripper off of here, then I'll be able to just sand off what's left. I just did part of the door to see how it would work, and that's a little faster. I've got a strip disc on, got this from Eastwood, a little strip disc here, and I've got another one that's a little, they call it a cleaning disc. It's a little bit thicker, this one. But I was trying the other one actually first, and this is just going to be a little bit faster, looks like, because it's got 2 or 3 paint jobs on it. If it just had one, then that other strip disc would have been fine. But I'm just going to scrape all this off with a scraper, and then I'll spray the rest of this. Actually spray this and be scraping this while that's working. But we'll go ahead and do the rest of the door with what I have. I may not have enough to do the rest of it completely, but I'll get 80-90% of it off, and then I'll just start sanding after that, and then redo all this body work. I got a couple holes that are in here when they pulled the dent out and filled. I'll have to weld that up. Okay, I've done what I can with the paint stripper. I didn't have a whole lot left. I put a light coat in the middle and got some of it to razor blade off since it got a little bit softer. I'm going through with the strip disc. It's right here. It's almost like one of these rust remover Scotch-Brite pads. I think it's a 7 or 8 inch disc. This is where the filler was. I just took out what was in here. This whole area right here was filler, and it's not super straight, so I'm gonna have to straighten this. And a little bit right in here. This is a little bit too high, and that's a little low in there, but I'm gonna have to rework this whole area. Right now I'm gonna go through and just strip all the paint so that I can find everything that's on it. I know there's a dent right here, kind of a straight dent there. There was 1 or 2 at the bottom here, and then maybe a door ding or 2 in there. I think the top was okay, but I've got to strip it all the way back to make sure there's no hidden filler that I've missed. I don't think there is, but we'll go back to the bare metal and then we'll start redoing the body work. All right, everything's straight. Going through and just welding up holes now. Probably 1/8 inch diameter holes. Gonna weld these up, smooth it out. Probably gonna have to tap down these spots that I'm adding this heat to, but I'll just get some body filler over this whole area and just let it sit and harden up, and I'll go do something else while it's setting up. All right, I went through and I took the seam sealer out back here where the door had been damaged. There was a little bit of rust back here where this weld was put on. That was just to tack the skin to the frame, I guess, whenever the last repair was done on this door. So I cleaned all this out and sandblasted all the rust out of it. Got that ready to prime. Put a little bit of filler here where the frame was a little bit rippled. Just gonna smooth that out while I'm at it. Since we got to prime this anyway, I might as well just smooth this out. And I'm gonna end up seam sealing this again just to match the original, sort of like I did on the fenders to the cowl. once I get it primed. It's got to be over a primer. I've got this welded up. I don't know if you can see that. Got all the holes welded up, whole outside stripped. Now, that heat may have done a little bit of warping, but I don't know yet. I'll have to flip it over and see what I need to do to that. But I'm trying to get the inside here primed and seam sealed, and I'll flip it over and do the rest of it. All right, ready for the first coat of filler. Got the holes welded up, ground down. Everything's either ground or in 80 grit scratch. It's 80 grit DA all the way out here. You can see how this is my strip wheel here. I've got 80 grit on DA all the way around the damage. So I'm going to extend the filler out past it, and I'll just block it back into it, but it's as straight as I can get it. Backside still just got filler on it. I'm going to go ahead and get the coat of filler on the outside here just to cover the metal up, and I'm going to flip it back over later and go ahead and just wipe on some epoxy in there so that I don't have that exposed for too long. That's been open for almost a day now. And I can go ahead and get that backside coated. And I'll mix up more epoxy to epoxy the door when I'm done with the body work later. All right, guys, I've got this thing completely stripped and I've got all the body work done. I actually got some glaze so I could finish this out and have a little bit easier filler to sand and get everything slicked out. Went ahead and just wiped pretty much the whole door except for the top. This was pretty much straight. But this got any door dings that I might have missed, and I didn't want to miss anything and have to go back and do anything later. I want to get this thing primed and let it sit and not have to put any more on it so that it can be sitting as long as possible before I paint it. I don't want any fresh primer on it. This is all Evercoat Metal Glaze Ultra. I'm going to go ahead and back mask this edge here all the way around and just drop paper off that tape onto the rack so I can just spray down and keep the primer off the jamb. I am going to paint the jamb later, but I don't want to have to take any more primer off than I have to back there. Let me get this masked off and I'll get the epoxy ready to go. We'll shoot this. I've got 2 more trim pieces that need some epoxy, but I don't have them ready just yet. I want to go ahead and get this sealed up, and I'll go to lunch and come back and do that. I'll give you a quick shot of the epoxy. It's just going to be one coat. Like I said, the upper part of the door here above the body line is perfectly straight as far as I can tell. Didn't really need any body work at all, but I just didn't want to miss any door dings or anything through here. Since I had to strip the door, I went ahead and did this. The other side, driver's door, was not near as bad a shape. It didn't really need to be stripped. And I didn't see a whole lot of dents in it anyway. I gotta let this sit for about an hour, maybe hour and a half, since it's a little bit cool. It's about 55 in here. And I'll get the 2K primer on top of this. Probably full 3 coats, maybe just 2 coats at the top there. Okay, I've moved on to the trunk lid. Door over here is curing up. I'm gonna paint the door jambs and the trunk jamb all together. That way I can just get all 3 jambs finished at once. I've marked the cracks in this thing on each side. I didn't think there were any on the other side, but there are. But this is the major part of the issue right here. But I'm just going to grind these out. This is just going to be cosmetic. You'd really need to take the outer skin off and get behind it, but there's really no way to do that. I'm just going to dish these out a little bit. I'm going to use panel bond in here that will stick to this fiberglass instead of trying to mix up fiberglass or use fiberglass filler. That panel bond will be stronger than this stuff. I'll just use it to fill these in, let it sit overnight, and come back and sand it down smooth, and I'll just prime this area. Same thing here. I've got some bolts in these holes just to make sure I don't get any panel bond inside the threads. And I'll take these back out. That's just there to keep the threads clean. I'm gonna work on that, and once I get these fixed, I'll shoot a little primer over this when I've got some out for something else. And then while it's drying, I'll just scuff the rest of this and get this thing ready to go with the doors. Alright, I'll just continue on doing that and get it filled. Alright, I've got the panel bond on, just gonna spread it out, and it sort of self-levels a little. Not as good as the 5887, but it's flexible, so I need something here that's gonna harden up. Most of this I can come through here, either take the file belt and run over it and just plane it down, or I can run a sanding disc over it. This area right here is really the most important, since that's where the seal has got to sit, so I got to get that nice and flat. I'll probably block that out right there. The rest of it's just going to be cosmetic. I just got to flatten it out so I can prime it. I taped off a few little areas, like right around in here, so that I wouldn't get it down in this little valley, and just pulled the tape while it was wet. And it's still wet, and it's going to be wet for probably another 8 to 10 hours at least, or at least tacky, and it'll be fine tomorrow. And I'll get it cut down. I'm going to go start working on some other parts. Get them ready to prime with this. All right, ready to prime this. We've got the heater blasting in the background. Just gonna clean this off one more time and just spray a little primer around this area. I'm not gonna mask anything, that way I've got a soft edge everywhere and I can just come back and scuff it. Get that mixed up now, come back and put it on. All right, this thing's good to go. I'm gonna let this set up where I can sand it out. I've got some scribed lines right here to line up to the hinge. You can see there's one there, one through here, one through here. I'm going to remark those in the primer after I sanded it. The guide coat will stay in there, but I need to just go ahead and remark it so that when I paint it, it'll show up even better. Got the same thing over here. I lost part of this one in the fill work, but I've got this one over here and that one up there, right there, that I'll realign to the hinges. That'll get me really close. If not perfect, then I can adjust from there. Once I get this sanded out, this will be ready to go. I've already scuffed everything else and all the trims out of it, so what I'll have to do is I'll have to take this or cover this foam up. This is bonded to the lid, and the tool kit covers it up, so I'm going to have to just tape it off in here, and I'll do a soft edge across this edge here and paint everything but that area. So I'll do that probably with the door jambs. I need to get the outside of it blocked on both doors, so that whenever I paint the jamb, I don't have to turn it back over on the jamb and worry about scratching it while I block the outside. So what I want to do is block this first, flip it over, paint the jamb, then I can just hang it up or hang it back on the car to paint the outside, and the outside's already ready to go. I don't have to lay it back on that fresh paint in the jamb. All right, I just compounded the sunroof. I got to run the polish over it now, but you can see the finish that I'm going to have in it. I'm going to go ahead and polish it now. I'm doing this so that I can put the seal around it. I don't want to buff it with the seal, the rubber seal around this, because it'll get compound all in there and I can't get it back out real easily. And it's easier to buff with it off the car. So once I get this polished out, I'm going to put the seal on, and then I'll reinstall it into the car over there. I'll have to move those trim pieces. It'll go in there, then I'll just retract it and buff the roof out around this. That way it'll be inside the car, and I'll get it off this rack and I can start on the doors. All right, polished and got the seal on, ready to go in the car. Got one coat of wax on it, just so they won't have to be done later when it's in the car. You go ahead and bolt it in just a minute. I'm gonna get the trim off the roof, get it out of the way, and then I'll get this thing bolted back in. All right, according to the service data here, there's supposed to be a 1mm step in the front of the sunroof right here. It's supposed to be 1mm lower than the roof, and then 1mm above the roof back here. This is about flush right now, all along the front. And this is it's actually lower than the roof back here right now. So I'm gonna lift it up back here to get it slightly above the roof. And then that might rock it down in the front, but I'll have to see. I'll adjust the back first and then go to the front. But I've got it to where it's in its neutral position now. I've got it to where it's slid forward, and I've watched the track up there, and it's just about to lift it up to the vent position. So this should be the rest position where I've got it now. I'm gonna start in the back, go to the front. This is about flush. It's about perfectly flush there, but this is a little bit low. So I'll adjust back here first, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. All right, it's in the final position. Just gonna leave it there. I can't get it perfectly repeatable every time I close it and get it in the exact same place where I adjust it. So it's about flush here in the back. It's slightly below in the front. All right, I'm ready to do the jam here on the driver's door. I don't remember if I filmed the other one or not. I don't think I did. I was in a hurry to get it done. Still in a hurry, but we'll go ahead and just do this one just so I can get one of them filmed. I'm be going all the way around. Got the seal taped off. I'm not going into this area right here because I would have to pull the seal off. And there's a big lip there anyway, right there. So we're just gonna paint down to that edge and go all the way around it. I'm not gonna be doing in here. There's no need. Just going in past the trim card holes. I'm gonna spray a coat of adhesion promoter on this since it's so hard to sand in some of these areas down in here and around these hinges. That'll help it stick. And I'll go straight to base coat. I'm not gonna use any sealer. Well, that's going to get about 10-minute flash. We'll go ahead and mix the base coat up. It'll be ready for that to go on right after it. This first coat is just going to go over the places that are cut through the red, or I've primed, like on the front edge here. I reseed and sealed it. I'm just going to get that covered, and that way I don't waste a lot of paint trying to put red over red that's already there. Just going to get that covered, then I'll go back over the whole thing with probably a coat and a half of the actual red. Yeah, that will probably only take about 5 minutes to flash. It's actually kind of warm today, so I'll come right back and get this covered, and I'll show you the clear when I get to that point. Now places like the underside down here are only going to get one coat. That's all they need. It'll never see any sunlight really, so I'm just going to wait, let that flash off there, and I'll go around the whole door again. That'll give one coat there, and the rest of it will have two. All right, I just let it sit for about 15-20 minutes and pulled most of the tape off. I'm going to wait to pull this off just because it could touch the wet paint there, and it's still sticky. Like I said, the bottom's only got one coat. That's all it needs, just enough to gloss it, cover up the base. So tomorrow I'll pull this off, and I'm probably going to give it a couple of days before I put it back on the car. I've got the one that's on the car now. It's set for a whole day, but I left it on the car to where it's not touching the seal on the inside. It's just on the car so that it's out of the way over here. I've got a 4Runner here that I'm working on doing an A-pillar repair, and had to get that door out of the way so I could work on it over here. But this will go on in a couple days, and the next thing will be the paint on the outside of the doors and the trunk lid, and I may try to mix in a piece or two of the trim while I'm at it. See you then. All right, ready to go with the doors and the trunk. Just going to give it a quick tack and get the sealer on it. Now we got to tack the door. I'll do it in just a second. All right, time for the door. I was letting the overspray clear out from the trunk lid so it wouldn't land on the door right after I tacked it. That's getting 20 minutes. We'll get the base coat out. Okay, sealer's been on for about 5 minutes or so. I started over here since I have less airflow on this side, right next to the curtain. The air comes in across the top, kind of just tumbles around. So I start over here, give this longer to dry, so by the time I get to the other side, they typically end up drying about the same time, or within a few minutes of each other. This is almost ready to go. It needs at least another 10 minutes. It's starting to turn flat, but it's a 20-minute minimum. And I'm on the cool end of the temp range. It's 62 in here, and I've got 60 to 70 degree activator. And I finished up with this door, so it was done last. So it's still about halfway flashed. Got till about 310 I can mix the base up. I'm gonna let this sit, get the base coat mixed up in about 10 minutes and have it ready to go for about 310, 315. I'm going to let that overspray clear and then I'll do the door. I'm going to need to mix up some more base. We'll give that about another 5 minutes. I forgot to record the trunk, but I'll bring you back after I get done with all this, show you the final product. Here's a quick look. It's been about 2 hours since I got done with it. Trunk lid's not quite as slick. I'm going to buff it out anyway, so I'll take a little bit of texture out of it when I do that. I was using some fast clear just to keep the dust down. Looks pretty good. That's got the whole body done. Just got to get on the trim now. See you on the next one.